My final guest is Clarkstown Councilman Dan Caprara. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, George. Thanks for having me.
So, Dan, very happy to have you on the program. You've been on the town council for 2017, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Let's give our viewers a little flavor of who you are as a person. We want to kind of get a little bit about your background, your family.
Okay.
And then we'll talk a little bit about your service on the town board.
All right. I'm a lifelong resident of Clarkstown. I'm married with 2 children, and my children attend the Clarkstown schools as I did. My background, my occupation is I'm a field technician for Verizon, and I also am a member of the union's executive board where I serve as business agent. So a couple of days a week working for the union, a couple of days a week working for Verizon. And
So let's talk a little bit about your growing up here, because it must have really have been probably when you were a kid going through schools. I would imagine, probably like most of us, you weren't thinking, "Hey, I'm going to be a councilman someday." I mean, that kind of came along. But talk a little bit about growing up here in Clarkston and what that was like.
Okay,
what school did you go to?
It's interesting you should say that, because I can talk a little bit about that, and then at some point I did have an epiphany, and I did look back at.
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize it when you're in the moment as a child, but when you reach a certain point in adulthood, you say, wow, I had some really good people surrounding me and some really good role models, and I want to give back. And that's really largely what happened to me. I feel like as a child, if you don't have a good experience, or if you do have a good experience with positive role models, at some point that is going to hit you in adult life. And that's a cycle that we need to keep going. And that's why I got involved in local politics. But growing up here in Clarkstown, yeah, I was a member of the Cub Scouts and different sports teams, and St. Augustine's was my parish, and you have so many different role models. And I ran into my scoutmaster in ShopRite one day, and I hadn't seen him in 20 or 30 years. And I just started thinking about my time in scouting. And I said, boy, looking back, that was a great man. His name was Richard Goldberg. And I says, I have to start, setting the example for my children, and I have to start doing more. I was in my lower 30s, and I don't know if it was midlife crisis or that moment in time was an epiphany where I have to give back. I just started getting involved in so many different things, and it led me to local government, and it led me to so many different not-for-profits that I volunteer for, and I haven't looked back since. And I'm not going to, just because this was a little setback. I'm still going to be involved in a lot of different organizations and keep making Clarkstown as good as it could be.
Now, you're very involved with your kids. I know we've talked often, and you've talked often about your experience with your kids. So how old are your kids?
They're 8 and 10. Well, I think it's more my kids are involved with me. Is really, you know why? Because, well, my younger guy just started wrestling over at Clarkstown South. My older guy isn't really into the sports, so I try to bring them in on all of my community work.
Right.
So campaigning for 3 years, I've missed a lot. I've ran for this seat 3 years in a row now, and it does take a toll on the family. There's a lot of sacrifices that goes on, as you know. So my volunteer work with Keep Rockin' Beautiful, I'm on the board of directors there, so I try to bring them to all the cleanups and have them, show them the sense of community. They always come with me on my Meals on Wheels routes, and wherever you could bring an 8 and 10-year-old on your volunteer work, they come with me. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to them showing me what they want to do now. I feel like they've sacrificed so much for me, going to different campaign events and volunteer work. Now it's all for them now. Right. Take a few years off and just be a better dad, be a better husband, and do that.
It's commendable. There is a real price to pay for public service, as you well know. And schedules can just be crazy, particularly in campaign time. And you did mention it. You had 3 consecutive years of campaigns.
Right.
You ran, I guess, in 2015, fell short. You ran in 2016 and were successful, and then again just this past time. So in 2017. So again, that's 3 consecutive. There's not too many folks that have kind of been through 3 consecutive campaigns. It's, and there's a lot, because as folks that are viewers are seeing this, they don't, they may understand a little bit, but particularly the closer you get to an election, the campaign that ramps up, intensifies. You're trying to meet voters. You're knocking on doors. You're going to events, and who suffers from that? You're not home.
Right.
You know,
right.
And there's only so many events you can bring your kids to, and there's only so many events that your family can come to because they have their own life.
Yeah.
And very many ways, as a candidate, you become, you know, just a piece of the family. It can be very, very difficult.
Right. One of our family rituals is 7:30. We're all in front of the TV watching Wheel of Fortune.
Well,
and
yeah.
simple little things like that
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So I haven't missed a Wheel of Fortune episode in the last few weeks, and I'm
that's great.
enjoying it. Simple things. You know?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. My mother-in-law now pretty much lives with us most of the year now, and she's up in age, but she loves you know, Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. So it's nice that the campaign season is over, because there's some nights I'm able to be home, you know, to sit on the couch with my 15-year-old and with my mother-in-law, you know, for Wheel of Fortune and for Jeopardy, and particularly Wheel of Fortune. My daughter and I will guess the numbers for the New York lottery through the Wheel of Fortune about halfway through. So
that's always fun. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's cute. I actually, one time, it was funny with the DVR. I was able to rewind the numbers, and so I actually guessed all three for the pick three. They thought I was like I was.
I got to try that.
They thought I was a. You should try it with your kids sometime. Have them get up and then just rewind it. Have them guess the numbers.
There we go.
So anyway, but I digress. But we'll move back into your service on the town board. So you served for the past year on the town board. Let's talk a little bit about your service. You know what was the highlight for you of your service on the town board this past year?
Well, I'd like to say it wasn't one particular moment. It was a culmination of everything. I would like to say it went way too fast, because you're campaigning. Then now, what everyone needs to understand is council members, unlike the supervisor and his staff, the council members are part-time. So you're trying to find every moment of time when you're not with your family, not with your job, not with your not-for-profits. Okay, let's go to town hall and meet the department heads, meet the different staff members that will be ultimately helping me along the way. So it went way too fast. I got to meet some good people in a very short amount of time. I would say my favorite part was definitely, we had a couple of spirited debates, but I think I enjoyed the budget season. It was my first time going through the budget season and learning a few things. So it was a learning process. I feel like I put the cart before the horse. I feel like a lot of times, if you look at other council members or supervisors or local elected officials, they do have some, like yourself, experience on planning board or zoning board. I went right into town board, and there was just so much to learn in such a short amount of time. So I would like to stay involved in any way I can and serve on whatever board or commission I could serve on, and I would really be interested in still representing the town, maybe not as a town board member, but just as a community leader with the not-for-profits, or serving on a board and just learning whatever I can. So I would say the highlight was meeting new people. As you know, you were a not-profit yourself. Isn't it amazing how many great people you meet, like-minded people? So that includes the residents who come up with something that's concerning them. And when you see them mobilize and come to us and say, hey, this is very important to us as a neighborhood. We would like to see this happen. We would like to see that happen. And being able to talk about it as a town board with the residents, I enjoyed every moment of it. And I look forward to getting back into it when my kids are a little bigger.
And I'll tell you, I think that certainly you were part of the board that maintained a status, level status on taxes. In fact, the 2018 town tax levy, after the equalization rate is done, businesses will actually see a 0.2% tax cut, and homeowners will essentially be flat. So that's you were part of a board that did that.
It's hard to hear that, because I did. Yeah. I think I did a good job, and I've entrenched myself in the community. So to come up 12 votes short, does hurt. You know, it really does. But you learn. What could I do better? And we'll see. We'll see in 4 to 8 years.
Right. And I'll tell you the other thing, Dan, that that I think that we should all be proud of this past year is, the decision early on in my tenure. We had done a number of things with the board prior to you, but this board actually helped to effectuate those, and that was we finalized and purchased the 30 acres at Marydale,
Right.
which was super important because long after I'm off the scene as supervisor and you're off the scene as councilman, those 30 acres are preserved. They're going to be preserved forever as part of the state park system, and they'll actually be paying taxes to the town for that. But the town, we were able to be the linchpin to solidify the deal and that commitment. And then also the Mullen Church property that we were able to come to an agreement on, and now we're purchasing, and we'll be closing on that in the early in 2018. And that that 4.5 acres will now be incorporated into the town park, the county park, with now a new town park, and that will be an opportunity for people over in the Mountain View area to be able to enjoy the nature park in a way in which they've never been able to do before. So I think those are two real highlights just from an open space
Two big ones. I'm looking forward to see that, those through to the Mountain View Avenue.
Right.
That should be a nice project. I'm looking forward to seeing what the town board and county does on that.
Sure.
That'll be great to see the hiking trails complete.
So let's talk just very briefly, because I know we're just about out of time. We have a minute or two left, but let's talk a little bit about some of the not-for-profits you're involved with. I know you're involved with Rotary. I know that you've been involved with Habitat for Humanity, and you're to be commended for that, Dan. The work that you did, in particular with the Pride Center, from which I'm familiar with, and Brooke Malloy, the executive director of the Pride Center, that's really, they're kind of making it work on a shoestring budget, and through the efforts that you were able to help out down there. So let's talk a little bit about your volunteerism with that, and some of the agencies and not-for-profits you're going to be involved with going forward.
Okay, so I'm very lucky to work for a great company, Verizon, where they have an incredible program. They want us to be involved in the community. So when I got started with the not-for-profits, Verizon has a program where if you volunteer 50 hours per year for a not-for-profit, they write a check for anywhere from $750 to $1,000 to that not-for-profit. And you can pick 2 a year. So I said, that's actually how I got involved. I said, let me do that. So back in 2012, I did Big Brothers and Big Sisters and Meals on Wheels. And every 2 years, I picked 2 different not-for-profits. So it got me to meet so many new people in different not-for-profits. I'm able to raise money for them, put my time in with that not-for-profit. And then sometimes you make such a connection with the not-for-profit that you end up staying on in a larger capacity. And I did that with Keep Rockin' Beautiful, and where I served as the treasurer, and I'm on the board of directors now for 3 years. But each year I picked two not-for-profits, and I'm so fortunate to have that. Homes for Heroes, Habitat for Humanity was actually in conjunction with Homes for Heroes. They have 8 units over there for Homes for Heroes on Western Highway, and Habitat for Humanity was asked to build a community center for the 8 units out of an old building, restore the old building. And we did that, so the 8 veterans who live there now, they walk about 100 yards down to a community center where they have like a pool table, ping pong table, and they can have their friends over, and rather than their apartment, they share this community center. So that was my favorite. That was a lot of sweat equity put into that one, is what Habitat for Humanity likes to say. So I enjoy volunteering with my hands and feet more so than I do fundraising and doing all the other parts that are involved in not-for-profits. And you have so much work, fundraising and clerical work and networking. If someone picks up the phone and says, Dan, I know you have a pickup truck, and you come, load this up and move it for us and do this and do that. I love doing that. I love the cleanups of Keep Rockin' Beautiful. I love helping not-for-profits, especially in the capacity of actual labor. I enjoy that so much. That's why Habitat for Humanity was great. Yeah, Rockland Pride Center is another one, and People to People. So wherever I can lend a helping hand, High Tor Animal Shelter. So this year, coming up, is going to be High Tor Animal Shelter and Keep Rockin' Beautiful will be my 2 that I choose. And then wherever I can lend a helping hand with other ones. So that's the plan.
And you're also involved in the Rotary?
Yeah, so I was a past board member of Congress Valley Cottage Rotary. Now that I'm not running every year, I would like to be more involved with Rotary. I've been a member of the Congress Valley Cottage Rotary for 3 or 4 years now. And no, I definitely have aspirations to have a larger role in Rotary going forward. Absolutely.
Well, Dan, that's about that's about all the time we have. But I want to thank you for being a great guest. I want to thank you for working with me this past year as a member of the town board, and I want to thank you for your service as a member of the town board as a council person, but also your greater service to the community through your volunteerism. And I wish you well going forward.
Thank you. Same here, George.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.